ban treaty is a gift to the world. It will come alive in and through those who embody its ideals. To succeed in its aims, tremendous political pressure must be brought to bear on states that depend directly or indirectly on nuclear weapons. Nuclear alliances must end. In a time of ecological and humanitarian crisis, it can be an instrument of peace, but only if we believe in it, invest in it, and use it boldly.
The entire international medical community has come together to support the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons because we understand that this treaty is an essential step towards eliminating these weapons and establishing true human security. We're told by the countries that are armed with nuclear weapons that somehow these weapons magically protect us, that they'll never be used. We know that's not true. As long as they exist, there is the great danger they will be used. And in fact, the only way we can make ourselves truly secure is by eliminating them once and for all.
The Nuclear Ban Treaty is a powerful and eloquent statement of the existing principles and rules of international law that forbid the use and threatened use of nuclear weapons. The treaty also could serve as a framework for the global elimination of nuclear weapons. So we encourage all states to rapidly sign and ratify the treaty to make it a powerful instrument in the fight against nuclear weapons.
Nuclear weapons are the worst weapons ever created. No one should profit on these weapons of mass destruction. The new Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons prohibits assistance in the manufacture and production of nuclear bombs. That's why we're banking on the ban, not banking on the bomb.
My experience of nuclear weapons goes back to when I was a child, living in close proximity to the nuclear weapons base at Faslane and Coolport on the River Clyde here in Scotland. It was a big bogeyman in the background of people's existence, and it continued that way as I grew up and I learned more about the reality of nuclear weapons, and they are a real-time bogeyman. They are frightening, they are dangerous, and they are something which we really must do away with, and that is why I'm so delighted at the result which came out of the UN treaty. It gives us a big step forward, and we're going to use that in order to achieve a world free of nuclear weapons.
The treaty is a wonderful step forward to fulfilling the World Court's unanimous judgment that there is an obligation to negotiate nuclear disarmament in good faith. Article 6 requires states to assist victims and help remediate environmental damage. I hope New Zealand's nuclear disarmament legislation, now 30 years on, is a model that states can adopt to implement their commitment to this treaty. Thank you.
I once operated British nuclear weapons. World events made me change my mind, and so I broke free from my pro-nuclear brainwashing. US Air Force General Lee Butler, after running the entire American nuclear war machine, did the same. Like me, he had learned that nuclear deterrence, far from providing security, is a vast protection racket by a US-led, organised crime syndicate who use it as a counterfeit currency of power and whose only other beneficiary is the corporate arms industry. That is why I support the Nuclear Ban Treaty. It's an important step forward towards placing nuclear weapons in the same legal and moral cesspit as chemical and biological weapons.
In my book, Disarming the Nuclear Argument, I look at all the reasons given for why we need to have nuclear weapons, and I've found none of them stand up to the slightest scrutiny. We do not have these weapons because they make us safe or because they protect us from or deter enemies from attacking us or whatever, or because they give us status and power in the world. We have these weapons for one very simple reason, which is that a very small number of people are making a very large amount of money out of it. And that's why we need this treaty, and it's very exciting that we've finally got this after 70 years.
That law, however it plays out, will help us just move to a world where the proliferation of nuclear weapons, and by extension their use, by accident or on purpose, is statistically inevitable. And that's a horror we can hardly comprehend, especially as we lose the witnesses to the original uses of these weapons in war. And that we can use this to move instead toward a world where that kind of use is illegal, as it is for all other weapons of mass destruction already, where we can minimize, therefore, the power of small numbers of people to destroy a civilization, just for all time, because of the disputes of the current day.
The treaty is an extremely important one. We were completely thrilled when it was recently passed. However, several nuclear weapon states, like my own country, India, made a mockery out of this. We were completely saddened by this because we are a land which gave non-violence to the world through Mahatma Gandhi's ideals. Our younger generation of Indians will continue to work with the global citizens of the world to ensure that we have a nuclear weapon-free world, a world of peace and unity and of togetherness.
The Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons is a treaty that has been worked on very hard. I believe the vast majority of humanity supports the abolition of nuclear weapons. My grandmother in 1945 wrote about us breathing in the dust of our absent brothers and sisters of Japan following our nuclear bombing, atomic bombing of the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. We are ready to support this treaty now, and it is imperative that we do so for the future of the planet.
I have lost my whole family and also all my friends in Hiroshima, and I personally would like to thank all of you for so much for working so hard for this treaty, way of honoring my family who perished, all the effort you put into for this treaty, and I want to thank you so much.
People began doing plowshares actions to try to address the corporations that were responsible for creating these weapons and improving, as they call it, these weapons. And they need to be resisted. And we continue to work to try to do that. it's not hard for me to imagine Dan Berrigan and Phil Berrigan, my husband, celebrating in heaven that this is a possibility, this treaty is a possibility. They would have put themselves into it as much as possible were they still alive. I do hope that it can become a reality soon, and very soon, that we can put all of these weapons out of commission.
My parents, Pete and Toshi Seeger, dedicated their lives to working and singing for peace, social justice, and nuclear disarmament. I feel they'd really appreciate it if you would sign this treaty and if it was implemented.
I think it's hard for us now to realize that in 1945, when the war ended, there was such an enormous sense of horror at what had happened, the tens of millions of people who had died, and the advent of nuclear weapons at Hiroshima and Nagasaki, that there was a huge human drive to put an end to war and to make sure that nuclear weapons would not be used. That's faded somehow. We've almost gotten used to having the nuclear weapons and forgotten that they will destroy us. The only hope we have of this treaty succeeding is a citizens' movement in every country that will help to bring that treaty into force.
Our organization is composed of veterans who have been to war, who have participated in armed conflict, who have seen the destruction and the horror and the pain that it causes. We believe very firmly in stopping this nuclear arms race and in supporting the treaty. We believe in changing the economy of the United States as one that focuses on people's needs, that focuses on peace and social justice issues, and takes care of people in a healthy manner rather than a destructive one.
So we've been told that it's risky for the United States and some other countries to sign the treaty, but I think it's life-threateningly dangerous for us not to sign the treaty, to not be responsible for the weapons that we've made and stockpiled, and it's our responsibility to get rid of them. So that's why we have to sign the treaty. And I'm glad to be a citizen of the world and be part of the movement to end these weapons forever. And I applaud everyone who has had the courage to be part of the treaty.
We've had a nuclear non-proliferation treaty for 40 years. And what has happened in that 40 years? Nuclear proliferation. You can't use nuclear weapons. Even the use of a single nuclear weapon would devastate our planet and destroy everything that we know and love. You can't use nuclear weapons. So why do we have them? Why do we have 7,000 of them in this country? Why do we have even one?
The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons is of momentous historic significance. It provides a pathway to the elimination of the most acute existential threat to the health of people everywhere and to our planet. We should take it.
This treaty is the first real leadership the world has seen in years on nuclear weapons. With it, we take a critical step in the dismantling of the institution of war. We need to build it nation by nation until the holdouts are understood to be pariahs and are compelled to climb on board.
Have already seen the destructive capacity of nuclear weapons when it was first used in 1945. We know the humanitarian consequences of using these weapons of mass destruction. Hence, to be able to save our human community and our Earth home, we should actually adopt, or the state should adopt, the Nuclear Ban Treaty.
This treaty is an example of human beings evolving to use peaceful means of communication and moving away from our propensity toward war and death and destruction. We need to be using our resources to mitigate the global climate crisis and to help those people who are victims of it, not to fight wars, any wars at all, let alone nuclear wars. Congratulations.
I love the new treaty to ban nuclear weapons. It was the most exciting thing I've ever done in all my years at the UN. 122 nations took it in their own hands to tell the nuclear weapon states, we're fed up, these weapons are illegal, they're prohibited, we're not going to allow them, they're unlawful, just like the world did for chemical and biological weapons. And now it's a chink in the armor of the nuclear weapon states. They're twisting arms, they're trying to tell people they shouldn't be part of this treaty. But we know that it's the beginning of the end for nuclear weapons because we now have a legal norm that they are unlawful and no one should have them.
I was really excited to hear about this treaty. My friends were really excited. And as soon as I found out that the nuclear states are refusing to recognize it, it suddenly felt like this parental force was coming down on me and my generation and those nations who are on board with it, and were saying, no, you can't have this, which to me is actually really childish. These nuclear states think it's brave, or at least are presenting themselves as thinking it's so brave that they have nuclear weapons and refuse to get rid of them. But really what I think would be the bravest thing would be to say enough is enough and to stop.
Have you made a mistake this week? Any kind of small mistake, like spelling error, or you forgot to turn the coffee on in the morning? Or have you had a problem with your computer, for example, operating system, or maybe your phone didn't work properly? Human beings are in charge of all nuclear weapons on Earth. We make mistakes. We've built machines that will eventually break. Young people do not know enough about nuclear dangers, and we do a great disservice to them by not educating them about the reality of the world in which they live. Let's change that.
The greatest leaders I've known have been against this for decades. This will not only hurt others, but it will destroy us. This is why this treaty is so important to my generation. We value love and connection with everyone around the world.
I work hard every day. My parents raised me to care, recycle, not litter. One thing for sure, we don't want any part of destroying this beautiful earth. We want technology that solves our problems, not destroy solutions.
This is the time for us youth to be united and to speak up boldly and unapologetically about this important decision concerning our future. And this is what this treaty is about, our future.